There's a storm across the valley. Clouds are rolling in. The afternoon is heavy on your shoulders. There's a truck out on the 4-lane, a mile or more away. The whining of his wheels just makes it colder. He's an hour away from riding on your prayers up in the sky. 10 days on the road are barely gone. There's a fire softly burning and supper's on the stove. It's the light in your eyes that makes him warm. Hey, it's good to be back home again. Sometimes this old church feels like a long lost friend. Yes, and hey, it's good to be back home again. There's all the news to tell him. How'd you spend your time? What's the latest things the neighbors say? And your mother called last Friday. Sunshine made her cry. And you felt the baby move just yesterday. Hey, it's good to be back home again. Sometimes this old church feels like a long lost friend. Yes, and hey, it's good to be back home again. Oh, the time that I can say this tired old body down. Feel your fingers feather soft upon me. The kisses that I live for, the love that lights my way, the happiness that living with you brings me. It's the sweetest thing I know of, just spending time with you. It's the little things that make a house a home. Like the fire softly burning with supper on the stove. The light in your eyes makes me warm. Hey, it's good to be back home again. Sometimes this old church feels like a long lost friend. Yes, and hey, it's good to be back home again.
It is good to be back in this home again. Sometimes the sweetest things are being with you. You couldn't see it, of course, but I was smiling like a Cheshire cat for about 3 minutes right there. Still am, in fact. Welcome. It is such a pleasure to be able to welcome those of you who are here in this sanctuary this morning, as well as those outside on our patio. Hi. And those watching us today on Zoom. It is our first worship service in this beloved sanctuary since March 15th, 2020. So let's have a cheer for being right here. Now, I can't tell you how good it is to feel my hands on this pulpit right here either. Behind me, our treasured round window that looks out onto the world, and beside me, our historic altar that dates all the way back to 1880. We are here. We made it this far. It may feel a little bit weird to some of you. I know it does to me, but we will get used to it. We've grown accustomed to other ways of being together. Now let's get accustomed again to this way. So welcome. Let us revel in this transitional moment and let us start by singing. And of course, what other hymn would we sing on this occasion than number 361, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. All verses. Please rise in body or spirit and join your verses in singing. Take it away, Les.
Good morning, everyone. So for those who don't know me and didn't hear someone say my name, I am Steph Tacey. And as a member of the worship committee, I am so thrilled to welcome each of you to this morning's service. And well, they're gone now. I was going to give a special welcome to our kids because it's really great to see them here. But isn't it wonderful to be here in our sanctuary after such a long, long time? And for everybody viewing the service on Zoom, isn't it also wonderful to see this worship scene that we hold so dear on your screen? For any first-time visitors who aren't familiar with this sacred space, I want to offer a special welcome and invite you to sign our guest book. The physical book is on the welcome table at the back of the sanctuary, and the link to our online guest book can be found on our website. And it will also be put in the chat for those viewing on Zoom. You will find we are a community who welcomes all people. We value diversity of all types and offer a safe place to explore all questions with honesty. As a safe place, we ask that you please be mindful of a few guidelines that have been put in place for everyone's health and safety. And the guidelines can be found in the service program. I want to thank all of you who are attending on Zoom in advance for your patience as I just briefly go over a few items for the people who are here in person. First, as everyone is doing, you should always wear a mask when you're inside the building. And as you're aware, our choir uses specially designed choral masks when singing. We're not using name tags for the time being, but don't be strangers to anyone you don't know. With precautions in place, let others feel the welcoming congregation that we are. We are asking that you visit with each other outside rather than lingering in the building, although I realize that may be a bit difficult with today's weather. Also, to prevent bottlenecks, we're asking that each time when you enter the building, you move directly to the sanctuary. And when we Our sanctuary is full. We will have overflow seating in the Great Hall. So if that were the case, you would move to the Great Hall. Please be sure to turn off your cell phones or put them in airplane mode so they don't interfere with the service broadcast. Hearing assist devices are available for anyone who needs them. All you have to do is ask an usher if you'd like to use one. I also want to remind you that the Joys and Sorrows book is still available on the welcome table, and there's still time to share a candle request that I'll be reading later in the service. If you have any questions or concerns, please find the board greeter who will be happy to address them. And our board greeter this morning is Meredith Meyer, and she's standing out in the lobby. You'll wave. There she is. Thank you, Meredith. So we're finished with the announcements. And now, let's turn our focus inward as we prepare for worship. Settle yourself in your chair. Take a slow breath in and exhale. Open your hearts and minds to the possibilities of love as Reverend Bill offers the call to worship.
I have adapted this morning call to worship from a gathering message by Reverend Kathy Rion Starr. Welcome to this sanctuary of celebration. Here, may our hearts soar in gratitude that we are together once more. Welcome to this place of peace. Here, may we find moments of quiet contemplation. Welcome to this home of the heart. May we gently hold all who come here who are broken. Welcome to this place of action. Here may we find inspiration to build a better world. Come, let us draw the circle of love and justice wider still. Come, let us worship together. And now please rise once more in body or spirit, wherever you are this morning, as we sing our hymn of invocation and recite our covenant. By this covenant, we affirm that love is the spirit of this church, the quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer, to dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God.
Good morning, everyone. All right. You all can see me, yes. Can you all see me? Yes. Yes. These are our kids are free ranging these days, it seems. Some of them are here and some of them are on our grounds. our time for all ages today, it comes actually in part from a conversation I had with our kids 2 weeks ago. We were going over our principles, and one of our principles is about our impulse as you use towards the democratic impulse. And so I asked our kids, who incidentally can't vote, what does it mean for them to be in a community that values their voice and values democratic principles? So often we think about democracy as voting, but democracy is a much bigger thing. It's a much bigger thing than just how we vote, though voting is essential and important to how we conduct our political democracy. And our kids had a couple of suggestions that how they speak with each other, how they speak to each other, and how they organize, even though they don't have a vote, is one way in which they can exercise their voice. And so they talked about going to rallies and gatherings, and also talking to their school officials about things that are important to them. So I think the question for all of us, as much as for them, is what do we do and how do we organize ourselves? And how do we ensure that the voice of everyone is heard, whether or not that has to do with a vote? So part of that is a question for all of us about how do we ensure the voice of our children when they don't have access to a ballot? But also, like, what does it mean as a community? Often in UU churches, democracy looks like voting in an annual meeting. The annual meeting is also a place where our kids don't have the capacity to have voice or vote. So the question for all of us is, how do we make sure that in our community, we all get to have a voice and a vote? Participation is one of the ways that we do that. So if you'll look in your order of service, there's a ballot. It's a Halloween ballot. It looks like something funny, right? It's just a fun activity that we can all do. But next Sunday, we have a Halloween service, and these are things which we could include elements of in worship. So all of us have the opportunity to say what you might like to see, either in terms of themes, references, readings, exciting things in this ballot. And unlike when we vote on November 2nd, our kids actually get to participate as well. So I want you to fill this out. I want you to go ahead and fill this out. And in the back, right next to Bob, there's a white box. Bob, can you hold that white box up? There we go. There is a white box. Once you fill this out, you can slip it in. All right. So this is a way in which we can all have input in worship. Another way that you can have input in worship, if you're interested, is maybe being a worship associate. So if you're interested in being a worship associate, also talk to Reverend Bill about that. Or an usher. Participation is how we participate in democracy, whether or not that's our voting or our practice, or how we center people who might not otherwise have a vote. So my challenge for you, as it is always for our kids, is find a way to participate in this community and in our wider political environment, because your vote, though important, is not the only way that we conduct to democracy. Okay. Thank y'all. Have a great worship.
So we've come to the outreach offering in our order of service. And our offering goes to support work that we believe to be important. And we often use it as a way to connect to the message of the week's service. So today, as we embrace the message and spirit of our fifth principle, we also do embrace the youth of our church and community by supporting their education in the democratic process. We want our youth to know their voice matters here at our church, in our community, and in our country. So if you choose to share in today's offering by dropping some cash or a check in the box, there's another, not the white box, there's a different box. It's a clear box that's on the table as you exit. Your money today will go to support Kids Voting Ohio specifically. So any cash or checks that's donated today will be pulled together and sent to Kids Voting Ohio, which is an affiliate of Kids Voting USA. The larger organization is based in Arizona and is a nonpartisan program committed to creating lifelong voting habits in children, increasing family communication about citizenship, and encouraging greater adult voter turnout. Through the use of local affiliates like Kids Voting Ohio, they provide free curricula and resources to schools to help educators implement mock elections and involve families in the process to encourage voter education for all ages. Kids Voting Ohio assists schools in voter education during the run-up time to an election. They hold voter registration drives for the communities, and they also offer college scholarships to graduating seniors who participate in their programs. And their website, which you might want to check out, it's kidsvotingohio.org, has a parent resource page that has games, articles, and videos that can be viewed as a family in order to learn together. If you want to participate in today's offering, but prefer to do so online, especially if you're on Zoom, that might be the way you need to do that today, to use a credit card. For this particular donation, you will need to go through our church website. So if you go to huuc.net and scroll down just a little bit, there's an entire section there that Russ has put on about this week's outreach offering, and it has instructions on how to do that. Thank you.
It is the Sunday before Halloween. And if you've been around Heritage Church for a few years, if you've been paying close attention, you'll know that this is usually the Sunday morning that I encourage you, I urge you, I implore you to vote. So let's just cut to the chase. Please, please vote a week from Tuesday or before if you are an early voter, please. Now, every year, of course, or at least every 2 years or every 4 years, you hear it said that this is the most important election of our lifetime. Last year may, in fact, actually have been the most important election of any of our lifetimes. And although I hate to say it, the aftermath of that election, including most prominently the insurrection at the US Capitol on January 6th, in which a mob incited by the loser of that election sought to either intimidate or violently cause the Congress of the United States to override the expressed and voted will of the people. Yes, the aftermath of our last election shows only too clearly how much was at stake last November, and to what lengths those who would control our country and our culture will go to get their way. Yes, make no mistake, our democracy is still in grave danger. It is, some would say, on life support. Any realistic look at the real news will confirm that. And the fact is, the only way to quell the rising tide of authoritarianism and demagoguery that threatens to overwhelm our society and our system of government here in these days, in our lifetime, on our watch, is to show up. Show up at rallies and marches. Show up at your representatives' offices, of course, but also show up at polling places. Every single time there's an election of any kind. Show up in numbers too big to ignore, as the song says. Show up and show those who would seize power undemocratically that despite their gerrymandering and voter suppression and intimidation tactics, the vast, vast majority of us actually do want and are willing to fight for: civil rights, women's rights, voting rights, human rights. Frankly, for the life of me, I cannot understand why anyone would want anything else, which is why the past 5 years or so have been particularly discouraging for me. I know that they have been for many of you as well. But here's the thing. There are forces that want us to be discouraged. And if we get too discouraged, they win. Any and all repressive social structures, any and all oppressive governments count on just that. They place their bets that the citizenry, the majority, which is always comprised of good, decent, compassionate people, they count on the majority giving up, throwing in the towel, retreating into personal, individual comfort and safety, and thus not standing up for each other. Bullies thrive on silence, on the passive complicity of bystanders. And so we cannot be silent. We cannot become bystanders. Our Unitarian Universalist values and principles call on us to speak out and speak up, to vote our conscience, that nagging little voice inside that tells us we need to act. That will be our salvation. And voting, my friends, is a form of salvation as it is a form of action. It is one way the people in a democracy act to create the kind of world we want to see, the kind of world that the majority of Americans still, despite the darkness, the majority of us wants to see. We have a voice. Let us use it. We have a vision. Let us make it a reality. May justice roll down like waters and peace like an ever-flowing stream. I don't know about you, but I think I'm ready to hear the choir. Thank you, choir, and Steve and Les. It's so good to have you back in the sanctuary and singing for and with us. We'll sing with you later in the service. But for now, just know how much I appreciate your commitment and contributions to our worship services and to my message today. Friends, if you took time to watch the video I emailed out on Friday, you'll know where this second part of my reflection is headed. All politics is local, they say, and it doesn't get any more local than your friendly neighborhood school board. It doesn't hit any closer to home than what our children are being taught and by whom and why. Driving around Cincinnati this fall, you would never know that this was what they call an off-year election. Given the veritable tsunami of yard signs, all of which are getting poured on by rain right now, it's hard to imagine that there is literally nothing else on the ballot next week besides school boards and mayors, city and county officials, levies and bonds. This year, all politics in Southwest Ohio is indeed local, very local. Yes, everywhere we turn, we see yard signs, small ones, large ones, ones that clearly violate signage ordinances, but people put them up with impunity anyway. And everywhere we drive, we see billboards, large and larger, telling us how to vote. Not just for mayor, mind you, but wait for it, in school board elections. Our mailboxes overflow with flyers for candidates, including, well, not just including, but dominated by school board races. And so you could be forgiven for asking, what the heck is going on here? Again, if you watched the video I sent out, you already know at least part of the answer. The fact is, there is a well-funded nationwide effort going on this fall to stack school boards, to take over school boards. That effort is being driven by an even more well-funded, seemingly ubiquitous, toxic propaganda machine that is hoping to generate massive off-year voter turnout by stoking unfounded and irrational fears and playing on latent and not so latent racism. Otherwise, how in the world do you explain the fact that diversity and tolerance, inclusion and equity, words that I regularly use from this pulpit, words we regularly hear in Unitarian Universalist worship services, have somehow become bad words, dog whistle words to so many Americans, so many of our neighbors, family members, friends. It boggles the mind, but it's true. School board candidates here in Cincinnati and all across the country are running campaigns based on an explicit stated desire to prohibit concepts like diversity and tolerance from being taught to our children. For some reason, they don't want the next generation to learn about inclusion. Now, what I submit to you could be more universalist than inclusion? Oh yes, my friends, like it or not, we are in the middle of a culture war. Somehow, through propaganda, social media, and intentional misinformation, inclusion has become anathema to some. Yet it is one of my most fundamental values. One of our most fundamental values as Unitarian Universalists. But make no mistake, on the other side of the culture divide, concepts like inclusion, diversity, equity, Heck, that word equity is even in our UU principles. These words have become demonized and they've become rallying cries. Now, thankfully, I am describing what is still a minority of Americans, a very fearful, very vocal minority, mind you, but a minority. And that's where voting comes in. Always, we come back to voting. If voting wasn't important, why would some politicians and some pundits go to such lengths and expend so much effort and so much money to try to keep people from voting? If these ideas weren't minority ideas, why try to keep people from voting? There are some folks who are scared of the will of the people, because the people, by and large, want everyone to be treated equally. The people, by and large, want our children to be taught the truth, to be taught accurate, not mythologized history, to be taught science. The people, by and large, which means the majority of the people, stand on the side of love, to use Unitarian Universalist language. They believe in fairness and decency, compassion, and yes, inclusion. And they want the next generation to learn those values as well. They want to live in a country and a city where fellow citizens who seek to serve on a school board do not need to fear for their safety or that of their families. Yes, these are some of the things the majority of us believe in. And friends, the good news is majorities can win elections. They can win elections so long as they vote. Before next Tuesday, do your homework. Learn about the candidates. Learn about the issues. And then vote. Vote as if our children's future depends on it, because it does. And just in case you might no longer have children in the school system or might not be a parent, just in case you're still thinking that school boards don't matter or aren't worth the effort to go out and vote, I'll leave you with this. Earlier this month, a suburban school board in Texas voted to reprimand a fourth grade teacher for having a book titled "This Book is Anti-Racist" in their classroom. This came after a parent had complained to the school board about the book. The school had investigated, and the principal had decided there was no reason to take action against that teacher. But then the parent complained to the school board, which voted 3-2 to reprimand the teacher for having a book written for and geared toward children in the classroom with the title, "This Book is Anti-Racist." Elections matter, my friends. School board elections matter. Vote. That is my message today. Vote. Now, having returned to our sanctuary this morning, having considered the danger that our democracy and our society is in here and now, having hopefully committed ourselves to vote each and every time we are given that voice in this democracy, including a week from Tuesday, we conclude this portion of today's service by singing a hymn that we reserve for special occasions. It is a hymn of blessing, of consecration, of protection for this our beloved church and this our beloved space. Please rise here in the sanctuary in body or spirit and join us elsewhere, including online, as we sing hymn number 1, "May Nothing Evil Cross This Door." Hymn number 1. Please join me in a time of prayer and silence. Spirit of life that includes all and excludes none. God of mercy and compassion. We have heard this morning of sorrow and suffering. We have heard of joy and celebration. We have brought with us to this sanctuary our hopes and concerns, our fears and aspirations. Help us to hold all these differing emotions, all our differing experiences in one united, beating heart. Help us to see and be thankful for the beautiful quilt that is this life we share, this life we continue to weave together as family and as community. Let us be gentle and forgiving. Let us be fierce and courageous. Let us be honest and loving. Let all that we do and say be motivated by that love. May it be so, and amen. We continue now offering our private prayers, turning inward and sitting for a time in silence. May we honor the Spirit of life in each and in all. Amen. And while the past minute or so was for our private prayers, I have another public prayer this morning. I pray for our country that we are able to move forward, to move past the divisiveness that dominates the discourse these days. I pray as well that hearts will be opened, that minds will be opened, that fear and anger will be replaced by empathy and love. And yes, that Unitarian Universalist values such as inclusion, to quote our second principle, and justice, equity, and compassion in human relations take hold here among us. In our time here today, here in the sanctuary, here at church, here on Zoom, that time is now drawing to a close. And it has been moving for me in a variety of ways. To be here in this pulpit with you again, to have our choir here with me, to look into so many hopeful and happy eyes, knowing that we continue to move forward on our journey as a congregation, as a community, as a country. The road ahead may not always be easy, but it is good to travel together. And finally, one last thing. I would be remiss if I did not mention during this year's pre-election service, and look what's happening. The sun just came out as I was about to say this. We have here among us this morning a candidate for Cincinnati City Council. Now, of course, I cannot endorse a political candidate from the pulpit, but I can point out that a member of our congregation, a former president of our board, in fact, Jamie Castle, will be on the ballot for those of you who live within the city limits of Cincinnati. And so you might want to talk with her in the parking lot after the service about what she stands for and what she's running for, as together we move forward. So now to fire us up and get us ready to go, our choir has a special justice anthem that they'd like you to help them sing today. Luckily, the words are printed in your program, or if you're at home, will appear on your screen. So let's sing all together, and blessings to you all. I love you all.
We're gonna keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Never turning back. Never turning back. Keep on walking proudly. Keep on walking proudly. Keep on walking proudly. Never turning back. Never turning back. We're gonna keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly. Never turning back. Never turning back. We're gonna reach across our borders. Reach across our borders. Reach across our borders. Never turning back. Never turning back. We're gonna stop these wars together. Stop these wars together. Stop these wars together. Never turning back. Never turning back. We're gonna work for change together. Work for change together. Work for change
the Spirit of life that each of us possesses flow from one to the other. May it stay with us. And bring us peace and harmony. Until we meet again. Amen. Welcome home.